So it's now official. Everton have been hit with a 10-point points deduction at the start of this international break. Devastating news for them, but it creates a great opportunity for them to have some fun in their game back against Manchester United at the weekend. Before that, we're going to talk about our thoughts on that and just the reality of how, by the looks of things, with VAR, with the fixture pile-up, with the number of injuries we've had this season so far, the game is well and truly gone. Or is it? And can it be saved? I'm joined, as always, by Craig and Matthew. And we're going to start off of that news at Goodison Park of what's going on with Everton. Matthew, what's your thoughts on the situation for them?
I mean, they can't catch a break at the moment. It's just been like for the last few years with near threats of relegation, injuries, like player disputes on and off the pitch. This is like the last thing that they've needed. And it kind of shows why the last few games they've had on a bit of a run. Like, this is what they were preparing for. Like, we need to get maximum amount of points from so many games. And to be fair, I mean, apart from like a couple of results, they've actually done pretty well to get to the point where they're on, I think it's 4 or 5 points. So, it's only November, but these kind of things, they do count. So they carry that form forward. Like you said, against Man U, go on a bit of a run. They've kind of given themselves enough of a cushion to kind of go on and progress and get the wins when they can during the season. But we still got to play them. We've got to play all these other teams. But, I reckon they're disappointed. I think they're upset. Everyone with every right to be. Plus, they've got a new stadium by the river coming by. The last thing you want to do is have that glam stadium and playing in the Championship. So they're going to have that in mind. This is probably I'm not saying these points are a good thing, but I think it's giving them a bit of a reason to go on and try and push up that table and confirm their survival in some sort of way. Last year, they were in the rough of it between Leicester and Leeds. They won't want to be there again. And looking just by the form they've had so far with Daesh and just how they've improved and look a little bit more stable in areas, I don't think they're going to be there again. I think they're going to be in a relegation fight, but they're going to be ones that are a bit further up the table. But it sucks that it's happened at this point. It really, really does. Bit of a real shame, but I think they'll be all right.
Yeah, I hope they can turn it around and figure it out, because it will be a shame to lose one of the oldest clubs in the Football League, one of the Premier League founders, to relegation. But for you, Craig, when you look at the news and how it all broke, obviously Everton are appealing it, so we'll see what happens with that, whether they are successful or they might get it extended, you never know. But how do you think Everton should approach this now, going into their next sort of 5 or 6 games?
Win them all. Simple as that. They can't afford to lose in them all games. They have to win them all and get out of that relegation zone as quick as possible, because the team below them or in front of them start picking up points. They don't want the gap to be big, and they'll be before Christmas. Christmas is around the corner, so they want to narrow the gap. If they can get out during the Christmas holidays, then that would be good for them. If they can appeal it and be successful, well, I think they can maybe be successful with it. If they have a strong case to say this and that, whatever, then hopefully they can do that. But if not, they're gonna have to work extremely hard, win every game, be invincible for every game until they're out of the relegation zone.
Yeah,
and learn from these mistakes as well. Other clubs have to learn from what happened to Everton to happen to them. So
I think what's also interesting as well is with these charges is that it's because 2 of the teams that got relegated last season put in a formal complaint about them. I think it was
Leeds and
Leicester,
Norwich. Leicester.
Leeds were one. I think it might have been Villa.
Leeds and Villa.
Yeah, I think it might have been Villa.
That's why it was investigated into them. I mean, obviously we knew that when Farhad Moshiri took over in terms of ownership, they spent a lot of money on dross, whether it be managerial appointments that did not make any sense at the time or now in hindsight, or player signings which did not make sense at the time or in hindsight. They've really wasted money. And I guess for you, Matthew, when you look at that as well, how important do you think it is for other teams who will look at the situation, what's happened to Everton? How do you think other teams now will approach not just their transfer dealings, but also how they pick the managers that they bring in when they want to change things up?
Well, it kind of depends on where they are at the time of Christmas. The Christmas fixtures are all really disjointed and unorganised sometimes, because I think they've moved it now around. So I think they're doing Christmas Eve on not Boxing Day, because normally, from what I understand, is during Christmas Day when they're at home, they go training halfway through the day to be fair to Boxing Day. They're not doing that this time, so it's moved around a little bit more. But you've also got to be conscious of January, the January transfer window, and you'll look at this every single time. A lot of teams relegation when they want to try and get out, and they stockpile with teams with it's not just how many players they get, it's the kind of player that they have. So QPR was a prime example many years ago. They stockpiled with the likes of Ji-Sung Park, Christopher Samuel Kane returned, Rio Ferdinand, Bosingwa, all these players, and they still, I don't think got bottom, but they got relegated. Because they're going with players that they thought would make an impression, but like, these guys are past it. They've got nothing more to prove to you guys. And then the worst things you panic is the guy in the dugout, like what they did with Frank Lampard not that long ago, who nearly, again, put them in, is probably part responsible for the position that they're in. Get someone in more experienced like Sean Dyche, who granted might not be able to play the most glamorous football, but at least be able to get you to defend. You know, and you look at the clubs like your Sheffield United's, Burnley's, Luton, maybe even Fulham, or maybe even Forest, you know, will look at something like this. And certain teams who have been there before will know how to cope. But particularly the teams that have been recently promoted will be looking around. I reckon they'll be looking around, I think I said this before, other clubs with players that aren't maybe playing in like other Premier League teams. I might just loan and stockpile and getting them all in. It's not guaranteed to work. You know, you got to get the right personnel in, and there's like, listen, there's a good chance in 5 months' time you could be playing in the Championship. So just bear that in mind. You're not just here for the thing and stink out the joint next season wherever we are. You've got to be here for the flog and the survival. And it seems that Everton, I think for the good players they have, because they've got too good a squad to be where they are, I think a lot of them do get it. You know, the likes of Pickford, he will get it. The likes of Calvert-Lewin, he will get it. The likes of Coleman, who's been there since forever, he will get it. And, you know, other players alike, they're going to realise that, you know, they could be like free generals of the team. They know what's at stake. And if I'm getting in a whole bunch of players, I'd consult them as much as I could, because they understand the meaning what it is to this club. So I think that's what they've got to be mindful when they do their recruiting in the summer, is like, no, don't just be a thing where you get the chairman involved, get the players involved, because they're down for the sinking. But are you down for the sinking?
That is the big thing. They need people on board, and they need to make sure that whatever decisions they make between now and, you know, obviously now in this time period when they're trying to accumulate points and thinking about who they could bring in to help bolster the squad, that's going to be very important as well. Do you think, Craig, when you look at this whole saga, when you think about teams like, you know, Sheffield United who've just come up, who are struggling this season, it's been a very tough time for them. You look at Nottingham Forest, who have kind of steadied the ship more or less, but they did a lot of investments in terms of player turnover from their season when they got promoted, last year in the Premier League and obviously now this year. Do you think for those teams that are down at the bottom who might feel like, you know, let's actually chuck some money at it and see if we can get a solution, do you think this scenario might make them pause and think first before they start investing into players and even like I was saying, like changing managers and seeing if that works? Because there's been no one fired in the Premier League so far this season, which is quite astounding. And this is probably the first season in a long time when there hasn't been a manager sacked after this many games. Considering where teams are in the league, it's quite astounding.
Well, I think the reason why, because there's not a massive gap between the team at the bottom and the top half of the table. There's not a massive gap. Like with Chelsea at the moment, a couple of wins will get them into the top half of in the higher up of the table. And where like teams like a Nottingham Forest or Fulham are, 2 or 3 wins will push them up the table. So it's not a massive gap at the moment, and everyone's taking points off each other. So it's like the only issue is with Everton is that because they were where were they in the table before they got their 10-point deduction? They were like
they were outside the relegation zone.
They're outside, yeah.
So Burnley are bottom on 4 points. Everton are in 19th on 4 points. Sheffield United on 5th on 5, and then Luton Town out the relegation zone on 6 points. And
if they beat Man United on Sunday,
they're out of it.
They're out of the relegation
So it's
zone.
not the end of the world. It's not the end of the world. They've given themselves enough of a cushion to get to where they are now. So,
Definitely.
and they all know that.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean, like I said, their last few games has been quite good. You know, win, loss, win, draw, win. They really need to make that a
regular thing. Cut out all the losses, win, and draw one.
Teams around them, make them count.
Like the Lutons of this world and the Bournemouth of this world are relegation 6-pointer for them, so they have to win them. Those type of games they have to win. And if they play the big team like the Man Cities and the Arsenals or the Liverpools or the Chelseas, just avoid defeat, get a draw.
Try not to lose.
Try not to lose, get a draw. At least get a point.
Yeah.
Park the bus, get a point.
At home.
Or get a sneaky 1-0 win or something.
At home?
Yeah.
Exactly that.
Make your home ground a fortress.
That's going to be the big challenge. Can they do that? Can they make Goodison Park be a difficult place to play? We know they've done that in the past, so it's not an impossible task for them, but can they do it? Just want to look ahead to some of their next sort of fixtures, just to see what they've got up ahead of them, because that's going to be the big challenge. Let's just look at their next. We'll go up to for the end of the rest of this year. So first up, they've got Man United at home, as we've said. Then they go to Nottingham Forest away. Then they've got Newcastle and Chelsea back-to-back home games early December. Then they have Burnley away. Then they have Spurs away, Man City at home, and they end the year Wolves away. So if I'm looking at those fixtures now, just based on what we've seen, previously, Burnley, Nottingham Forest are the 6-point games they want to get maximum points from. Wolves, it's a tricky one, and they can do it, but it's a tricky one. Man United, we would love them to do it for the humour, but it's going to be a hard one as well.
Man United in form now as well,
and then Chelsea, Man City, and Spurs, you'd probably say Chelsea, Newcastle, City, and Spurs. You'd probably say those four on paper
are tricky games.
Might be a foregone conclusion, but you never know, because Spurs have the injuries. Everton might see an opportunity there to get something. Newcastle have a few injuries as well, and they looked very shaky against Wolves in the last game.
Bournemouth
were in the last game.
And I think
Chelsea, we know you guys are on a good run, but Charity FC
and rear its ugly heads.
might come up.
And Everton have got a good record against Chelsea at Goodison. They do have a good record at Goodison.
And Man City are not firing on every single cylinder.
They're not firing, but in a game like that, you'd expect them to get 3 points. Yeah. It's in the Christmas. That is on 27th of December, the Man City game, and the Spurs game's on 23rd. So it's a very tough fixture list going into January, but I do think they can get at the bare minimum. I think if they left, so what's that? 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. There's 21 points, 24 points up for grabs there. And I think if they could get 12, that would not be a bad return. It would mean they'll have quite a few wins and a few draws and, obviously defeats were expected. But we'll see. I hope they can pull something out of the bag and do that as well. Obviously, in light of these charges, there's been some news coming out about Roman Abramovich from his time in charge of Chelsea and some, payments that he may have made to agents of players. There's one story where allegedly he paid Eden Hazard's agent £7 million to convince him to join Chelsea over coming to Arsenal, which, as history has played out, makes me feel very angry. We would have never had the Beyblade moment. Or maybe it would have been John Terry spinning around like a Beyblade instead of Francis Coquelin. Who knows? But with that being said, and obviously, of course, we're still waiting for Manchester City and their 115 charges to come to light. With this 10-point charge deduction being given to Everton, for you, Craig, what do you think the punishment would be for City and now potentially Chelsea for what they've done? Obviously, it has to go to an independent panel that has to agree. What do you think the charges could potentially be for them, considering what Everton have gotten for what they did?
Hefty fine or relegation. If you fine them, they've got the money, they can pay it off in no time. So it has to be a severe punishment. Sorry, Matthew, but if you break the rules, you have to pay. If you break the rules, simple as that. You can't get. If Arsenal did that and they done it, I'll say the same thing. If you break the rules, you have to pay for breaking rules. And no one's superior, or no one should try and break the law or break the rules just because they got money and power. So yeah, if they've done that, then they both need to be punished severely. And if that means that they have to strip them from their titles that they won, for all the trophies they won in a time when they cheated, then yeah.
Yeah, I think this has definitely been a year of accountability across the world in general, and lots of things that have been hidden have definitely come into the light, which is good because people them need to be dealt severe punishment for their crimes. But for you, Matthew, like as a fan, if you living through this kind of golden Chelsea era of success, of winning trophies, that Roman has bankrolled a lot of stuff. He's been very smart in how he set up the accounts of Chelsea from his ownership in terms of the debt going to the the charitable arm foundation that he had set up, where the debt was all going there, and so there wasn't anything that the club was incurring, which was really good, which helped with the sale to Todd Bowley. But how do you look at things in light of these potential allegations against your club?
I know what I want and I know what I don't want. And, if push comes to shove, point deduction, I'll take that any day. A big fine, again. People forget we've been punished in the past before this with a transfer ban. And if there's one thing that is shown is that we can bounce back. And if anything, it kind of showed the spirit of the club during that time where we had lost our best player. We couldn't sign anyone. We had to rely on what we had and the talent that we have with our young, which for many, many years, we knew how good it was. And on that year, we proved how good it could be. So there was a kind of a different kind of view around Chelsea. None of this power thing, just more of a club rather than a force of nature. It was more of a club. But this time, it's a different kettle of fish because, it's a different situation now because we've got so many other players, young players on these fat contracts, and possibly we don't know what the future is going to hold for us should something happen. But look, like Craig said, he's one of those things you just have to take on it and just move and prove a success and move on from it. If we get relegated, so be it. I'd rather be relegated than say they take away some of the things that we won, because I don't think I wouldn't put that on the players that were there at the time. They were just there to do a job. But relegation, I would take more or less over anything, point deduction, all these kind of things. It's not nice to hear that your club's been involved in things like that. It's obviously not nice. Obviously, hold a lot of pride. I'm still going to support them no matter what happens anyway. I'll still be going down to the bridge. Hell, I might even prove tickets dropping price. That's one advantage of me. And there's also the WSL women's team charging on 5-1 against Liverpool. Thank you. So, look, if there's one thing that we have is resilience. I think we'll pretty much take on whatever comes our way. So we'll see. We'll just have to see what comes. But listen, I'm only cool with this if the Sky Blues come with us.
I agree. But
that alone, just if we're going down, you're coming with us.
I think that's fair. And let's just talk through some of what's been alleged against you. So the time period for which these payments were made were the seasons that were made rather is 05-06, 08-09 season, 11-12 season, 14-15 season, and 17-18 season. And obviously throughout those years, in 05-06, you won the Premier League, FA Cup and League Cup.
Yep.
08-09, you won the Premier League and the FA Cup twice because they're counting it as an overlap in season. 11-12, it was the FA Cup, Champions League, and then because of the overlap in seasons, it also counts Europa League win. 14-15, League and Cup double, and 17-18, League and Cup double. Lots of trophies to lose if they're found. But in terms of what they've alleged, or what's been found in these secret Cyprus papers, or the Cyprus confidential files, is that there were payments that been routed through third parties to the agent of Eden Hazard, Antonio Conte, and the transfers of Willian and Samuel Eto'o. Now, we know with Willian, when he came to Arsenal, we were not happy with how that deal went down anyway. Not saying it was anything dodgy done, but the guy was a bum. And it was just a bad deal for everyone. In fact, I remember when he scored his first goal for Arsenal was a free kick on the last game of the
his only game
West Brom.
against West Brom. And Arteta, I love it. His reaction, did he celebrate? No. Did he do a fist pump? No. Turned to the bench and swore in Spanish. Just like this guy. Now you score. All this time to deliver, now you turn up. Say less. obviously ripped that contract up. So yeah, it's a lot, and there's obviously been talk about some of your deals, some of the younger players like Bertrand Traore and some other ones. So there's a lot in there, and we'll see what comes with it. Obviously, Roman's not involved with Chelsea anymore, and I'll be curious to see whether the Premier League actually do decide to punish you guys retrospectively or prospectively with this one. For us, the big one is Man City because it's just too many charges. Everton's one was a handful of charges, and look how quickly it's been resolved. We're still waiting for Man City. And like you said, Matthew, you're right. The Sky Blues need to come down with you if they're found guilty. For you, Craig, what do you think needs to happen now in the sport to kind of bring a sense of fairness and transparency back? Because this has been historic financial abuses that have been done by clubs and led to their success.
Well, it starts from FIFA. All of it's all corrupt. It's all corrupt. So if they're gonna say they want the club teams to be clean, then the whole thing has to be cleaned out, wiped out.
The whole
thing has to be clean.
Wipes.
If it means you have to sack people, lock up people, do what you have to do. But it has to start from FIFA, UEFA, all the way down to all the governing bodies, and have a refresh. And if it means, and when it comes to the owners as well, I would say that before they come into the clubs, you have to make sure they do a proper check, not this fit and purpose rubbish that they're talking about. That's bullshit. Sorry, that's not. That's rubbish. They don't do their job properly, because if they did their job properly, why did the Everton owner waste all that money on wasted all that
dross?
Even thinking back to Leicester when they were first taken over.
By the guy who died?
No, but the guy before him, the previous owner.
Oh, the Thailand was...
Yeah, the Thailand.
Yeah.
He had no money. Yeah.
It's
like, how did that even pass fit and proper testing? And obviously, we're not going to talk about Newcastle.
What about Man City? When Man City owner before the Arabs, they had the Chinese guy before, when Ericsson was before that.
Oh yeah.
He was another one. He just came and then spent all the big money. The next season was bankrupt. The Birmingham City owners, remember them?
Blackburn Rovers,
Venky's.
Their single ownership. Turn them around. Do you remember how good they were?
Yeah.
They're ballers, and they were actually pushing for like Europa League thing. And then over the space of 1-2 years, they would fade into obscurity.
I still remember when Venky's tried to change their crest into like a chicken or something.
Oh man.
And the fans were just like, nah. Dead that idea.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Are Venky still owning the Blackburn now?
They're still there.
They're still there.
The Venky sponsor.
Yeah, it's still on the advertising ground.
When they played Blackburn at Lancashire Derby, Venky's are still there.
Yes.
And look at Newcastle, like you said with Newcastle, but beforehand, Sports Direct Arena for how long?
Venky's still own Blackburn Rovers. And it's been 11 years on.
And it's still in the Championship. And they haven't got to the playoffs. They haven't got promoted.
I think they got relegated at one point. Again.
Did they?
I think they did.
To League 2?
League 1.
League 1, sorry.
Yeah. It wasn't massively long ago. They had like Gabs Pedersen and Tunchai,
Yakubu.
Paul Robinson, Yakubu, and they were pushing for Europa League. Firmly pushing for Europa League. And now look.
I feel like, no, but on a serious note, I think they have to do a proper, like, when these owners are coming into the club, you've got to do a proper check on them. Not this little he's got money, so it should be all right. Because if a lot of these clubs are doing financial doping, where they're getting all these expensive players and buying up every, like FIFA career mode, buying up all the top talent, and then when it comes down to it, they're getting all the success, and then you've got the clubs like the mini clubs who don't have a lot of money, end up getting relegated, and a lot of them can't come back up because they can't sustain. You know what I mean?
Or they go defunct.
Yeah.
And Blackburn Rovers are currently 12th in the Championship. They were on 22 points. The Championship has been led by Leicester on 39 points, who are joint
Ipswich.
with Ipswich.
Yeah.
But because of goal difference, Leicester are ahead.
And Leicester's only lost one game this season in the Championship. Two.
Leeds and Hull.
They lost 2 and they've won 3 on the bounce since those 2 defeats. So what I love about the Championship is just so competitive, and anything can happen.
That's proper football, Claire. The Championship is proper football. There's no money in the Championship. It's proper football.
But it's more It's more just a case of going to watch the game.
It's family orientated as well, because
It's just going to watch the game. No one cares about next signing. No one cares about how many trophies. It's all about on that Saturday, 3 p.m, going down and watching your team, getting an overpriced pizza, hot dog or whatever.
Pie.
Like all around the corners of, because I do work at a stadium sometimes, every other weekend. And they come down in their droves, they come and sing the song. Stadiums are tiny in comparison to the mega ones we have in the Premier League, but you feel, you hear everything, the fans, the players, you feel it all. And that's their little happy spot, man. This come down, they all can agree about on the club, and that's what it is. It's like a little social thing right there.
So I guess on that note then, what would you say is the biggest thing from a fan experience perspective that separates out the Championship from the Premier League, that the Premier League has sort of lost over the years?
It's lost its spirit. It's lost its hearts. And it's lost what it meant to the people who put years and years in to only try and appease foreign tourists, investors, and those look to do like a community project. You know, I'm not saying that these things are bad, but what they're saying is that they're not football.
And I think it's good to make a distinction between foreign tourists and like foreign fans, because you have foreign fans who were like super invested in these clubs.
Big time, yeah.
You know, and when you think about like the hours they have to wake up to catch their teams, especially obviously fans of Premier League clubs, but you got fans that are, because of games like Football Manager and obviously FIFA now, EAFC. They've grown to appreciate the clubs that are lower down the football league, the football pyramid. So I think it's important to distinguish those two, because I think a lot of the discourse online now when it comes down to fans from overseas, it's like it's almost like international fans don't have the same
commitment, or
not commitment. They shouldn't be viewed in the same way as the domestic fans, because they've not been here and it's not the same for them. But it's like we all love our clubs.
They all follow.
But I think it's good that you mentioned that about tourists, because you know you do see a lot in games in the Premier League where, I know for Arsenal, we went through our barren period of not being good at football. But you notice that the corporate boxes were getting emptier and emptier, and so like now, because the team, you know, had a good season last year, even though it didn't end as well as we would have liked, there's such a difficulty in getting tickets and stuff.
Yeah.
So there's things have changed.
So yeah, the tickets for those fans where it means so much, and it goes to a person who's just there to look good. And this is not just football. Formula One does the exact same thing, depending on where you want to go. And that's why things like the Super League will just cause such an uproar, because it's not catering to the core base of fans of what it means so much, and where they're practically stakeholders to the club. You know, obviously these things need money to run, but then you lose what was special about them, to the point that some of these stadiums and places become carbon copies of each other. You know, you look at what happened and the Brentford stadiums are lovely. I know you go there. Yeah. The Brentford stadium's a lovely stadium, gorgeous stadium, absolutely, like, you know, stunning from where it is. But, you know, they've still managed to put it in an area where it's still kind of people focus, as opposed to say something like, I know this was for a long time for them, what happened to the West Ham stadium. I still think they could have done something with the Boleyn. That Boleyn had a heritage. The fans there claim that they won the World Cup with the players that went. Whereas now they merely took on from, all right, granted, it's starting to bear fruit now, but a lot of them, if you could say to bring the Boleyn back for a day, they're going to the Boleyn for a day.
With the Olympic Stadium, it was a choice of either having West Ham in there and Tottenham. So, like, who really wanted to be displaced? I think West Ham have made it work because it is still in East London.
Yeah, they made it work. Yeah.
But yeah,
it's just losing. I just think I think they're using football. They're using it for one, but you lose something else in return. You know, you look at all these gentrified areas, and the stadium and that is the hub of that all. But I know you're doing that to lose a part of the fan base you seem deem undesirable, something that we can all agree on. But at the same time, you're losing grandfathers, fathers and sons going there 3 p.m. watching their team play, because the tickets are extortionate.
They are.
Absolutely. Like everything is these days. You know, you're losing why people go to these things in the first place, a sense of bonding and community. But the Championship has that in absolute droves. You see a plethora of people. I've seen, dads and mums taking their kids for the first game, so excited. And the team might get battered, but they'll come back next week. They'll come back next week. My first game, my first this and that, whatever. I can only speak from one club. There's one club that I work at. But it's going to be like that all around the country. I follow a League One club as well. I'd love to go down there because that's where I'm from. Just to love football again, But, yeah, for all the glitz and the glamour, the Championship and the lower leagues, that has the hearts. That has the soul.
And I think that's one of the reasons why VAR has been such a polarizing thing, because the experience in the stadium when they're doing VAR checks, you just don't know what's happening. This means, okay, check in process, check in offside, check in handball, check in potential shirt pull, check in goal given.
Yeah.
And then depending on what stadium you're in, they might show you the replay. Because at the Emirates, they flash the replay up. One replay, they'll give you a quick flash the replay. And I remember one of the games, which was the one, the one against Man United when I was there. And when Gabriel stepped forward and Alejandro Garnacho was offside, they flashed that replay up on the screen. Sweet. But you don't get that experience. You don't know what's happening. And it's one of the things where other sports have gotten it right, where they tell you what's happening or show you what's going on. Just show us the thing. This thing. It's not. No one's going to run onto the pitch and attack the referee. You'd hope.
Yeah.
But I guess, with that being said, Craig, from your experience of working in stadiums over the last couple of seasons, so you've worked in stadium pre-VAR, post-VAR, have you noticed a difference in attitude of fans in and around the stadiums now going into games as a result of the introduction of VAR and how that's changed things for them?
One thing I noticed, because sometimes I work at Brentford, or someone that's at the Brentford games, sometimes the fans, if their team are losing, they'll come in and order drinks and food straight away. They won't go and watch the whole game, and they get very irated and all that. They start swearing. I remember the last game they played against West Ham, I think they scored a goal. I think West Ham scored a goal and they were very angry about it. And I think a lot of them were swearing and said, bloody VAR, hate VAR, I can't stand it. And a lot of them were getting very angry. I can understand their point of view, because they're not used. A lot of these older fans are not used to this VAR, because they're used to if the lads put their flag up, it's offside. Now they got a computer telling them, no, check it. Or somebody behind a computer telling them, check it, it's offside. All these lines and all that. So I do feel it for the older fans, and I think I kind of think VAR is kind of spoiling the game of football, because now referees are under intense pressure. More pressure than they need to be under pressure, because they have to manage a game. Injuries or red cards or incidents in the game are going to happen. And then on top of that, they've got to do VAR on top of that. So it's you know what I mean?
They're not really doing their jobs properly, because they're not making decisions either. Whereas how it should be is you make a decision, and if you're wrong, VAR says, hey, look, can you check that because I think you got it wrong? Or, yeah, that's fine. Rather than, I won't do anything, VAR will bail me out on VAR. And we've heard enough of the audio in the VAR control room to ultimately say that it's not a professional working environment. They're using nicknames. People are shouting over each other. It's like it's like a high school boys club. What's going on here?
Yeah.
There needs to be order.
But one thing I like about rugby, once they do they're checking rugby, once they send the guy off, it's off. They can't argue with the referee. They got respect in rugby. That's what I love about rugby. They got respect about it, because if the guy said this, you've done something wrong, and they do the radio to the other guy and say, yes, check it. They check it, off, yellow card, red card, they're off. I watched the Rugby World Cup, and I watched one of the games, and one of the guys got sent off for he did a bad tackle and hit the guy. They sent him off. The guy had to take it on the chin. He couldn't go back to the referee, said, why are you sending me off for? Or after the game, the manager from the country is saying, this is a disgrace, this, that. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
Cricket's the same as well. Cricket's the same. They show you and they keep you in the loop, and they solve their problems quite quick. I mean, it's like a 1-2 minute window, boom, and the game because there's no risk of added time, carry on.
It needs to be short. The VAR check should not take 5 minutes. If within 30 seconds you can't determine what's happened, move on.
Don't give it.
Why do you need to do super slow-mo? If you can't see, in 30 seconds, if you can't tell what's happened, move on. The other thing I want to ask though, because obviously, with playing Sunday League football, you do, Craig, and Saturday League football as well, do you feel that the way how professional players on TV respond to referees, is that having a negative trickle effect down Sunday League football? You're seeing the worst behaviour from players and also from fans, managers, and parents on the sidelines.
100%. I played football on Saturday and like, we lost the game, but the referee, like, some of the decisions the referee was making in the game were very, like, it was under a lot, like, the players were getting onto him, saying to him, ref, why are you making this decision? And then what happened was the referee blew the whistle and called the two captains over and said, both captains, so it said to the captains, like, now before the game, the referee said to us, he spoke to us before the game, said to me, you have any issues with him, go to your captain, speak to your captain and tell the captain, and the captain will come and talk to me briefly. What happened during the game, we should have had a couple of penalties and never got them. Players are getting angry, irate, whatever. Started swearing at the referee, started arguing with the referee. The other team not getting certain decisions, started arguing with the referee. Then the referee was getting fed off and getting like under pressure. So he blew the whistle and called the two captains over and said, listen, you guys sort out your team, or I'm going to end up sin binning players or sending off players. And I think, to be fair, he had the right to do that because he can't be abusing the referees. And in the amateur football, like in Sunday League and Saturday League, a lot of referees are getting abused. A lot of them are getting attacked. It's happening a lot. A lot of referees have dropped out of the game now because of that. They don't want to do it anymore because it's not right. And sometimes the managers are very aggressive on the sidelines to the referees. And then if you're a linesman, obviously in Saturday football, you have to do the lino yourself. Only if you're playing a higher level, you get linos given to you, but the players are the line. Sometimes the linos should be cheating in the games and all that, and the players are arguing the lino when they're cheating, the ref manager arguing the lino. So it's very like they're watching what the Premier League's going on, and I think they can bring their nonsense on the Premier League to amateur football, and it's not nice. It's not nice at all.
I guess hearing all that, Matthew, like, what do you think then the footballing governing bodies need to do from the top down and from the bottom up to really revamp how refereeing is done and to re-establish a sense of order and respect for referees at all levels?
I think at clubs, I mean, I haven't played football like that for a very long time, so I don't know what it's like for you guys either. But I would have a thing where the referees know and the refereeing body know what they need to do to organise their back room, make it more professional because there's so much at stake at these games. But I think on the other side, you have to be said that a lot of these professionals we put all these things in place for not respecting the referees that they should. He's there to keep the peace. But, like he said, at the game there, they're getting their antics because it's influence of the players that they idolise. So something's got to happen at a grassroots level to start up with the young kids to teach them. I mean, again, I don't know how this goes on. I don't know if this does go on, but something's got to be taught where, the game's moved on. We're much more about respect. We're much more about, understanding that, how things happen and work in the game. If you want to be a part of it, you're going to respect every single aspect of it. Have someone come in and talk to them what it means to being a referee. Have someone in explain why respect is valid and worth those both ways. Have someone come in and just do maybe like a little mini course thing if it has to get to that level to help people understand why they are there. And if something does happen, this is the procedure. Have a procedure in place for exactly what happens or what needs to be done, because it's getting out of hand. The referees are getting as much attention as the players. And it never used to be the case. At one point, you didn't even know the guy's name. But now you do. You're doing all these antics. You've got referees now on TNT Sports, Sky Sports saying all these things, which is good, but they only say it when the game's done. Right? Which obviously isn't good enough. But it needs to be more of an education. Education's a big thing here. We're in just understanding the roles of what they do and letting the players know that, learn from the likes of rugby, learn from the likes of cricket. It's just the more we respect and, go along with what they're saying, the easier the game gets. Because you don't get these problems with, in other sports. It's very rare you get these problems. And then if they do, they carry on, they move on. They don't moan and say and be like, oh, the referee cost us. Wait, no, we cost us the game. Referee's not wearing a Man United or whatever City shirt. He might feel like he is, but he's not. So more education, just more clarification between the two and understanding their roles to each other, I think needs to be so, so vital.
I think it's definitely going to be a time of change and learning and growth. And one final thing to talk about today is, of course, a subject that is of great concern for all of us. And we hope every time we have an international break, it doesn't affect our clubs. That's, of course, injuries. Just to say, so far this season, there have been 196 injuries in the Premier League alone. And that is up 15, that's a 15% increase compared to the last 4 seasons. And that's stats provided by ESPN UK. That is outrageous. And obviously, the other night we saw Gavi got injured for Spain. I think his ACL is likely to be out for the rest of the season. We've seen other players injured so far this season, like Pedro Neto got a hamstring problem. Obviously, you guys have lost Nkunku in pre-season. At Arsenal, we've had a few. We've had players like Smith Rowe out, Thomas Partey out.
Gabriel
Jesus out. He's back again. But, you know, it's a lot. What do you think, Craig, needs to be done to really address this? Because it's like, and obviously with the rumours and talk of a potential World Cup in Saudi Arabia, in, you know, not the next one, but the one after, you know, a couple of World Cups, and it could be end up in Saudi Arabia, which would mean another Winter World Cup. What do you think needs to be done now? And of course, coming next season, the Champions League is going to be even longer and bigger because they're introducing more groups and more phases and more teams to be part of it. What needs to be done now to really kind of prioritise player welfare?
You need to limit the amount of international football being played. You don't need so many international, like Nation League and all that nonsense. I need to scrap that rubbish, man. It's just rubbish. It's rubbish. No, I'm not being funny, but who watches the Nation League? We're going to win the Nation League. Come on, man. Is it going to help them get qualified for the World Cup? Or is this nonsense? Is this all about money? It's greed. You play enough money, you play Premier League, Champions League, FA Cup, League Cup, Europa League, Europa Conference League. How many competitions pre-season? When you go to America, China, Japan, to all this lucrative money these clubs are making, they need to worry about the players' welfare. I feel that they need to scrap some of the international games because it's too much. To me, look at Gabriel Jesus, for example. Last season he went to the World Cup. Arsenal were doing well. It didn't score a lot of goals, but it was doing well. Went to the World Cup, got injured. It was out for how many months? Almost 4 months, wasn't it? Comes back from injury, scores a couple of goals here and there, but was not the same player. This season, got injured again in pre-season, out for a couple of weeks, come back, did well again, got injured again. So these international tournaments are not, it's killing our players.
Even think Kevin De Bruyne last season.
Yeah.
That was really heartbreaking. Did he get injured in the World Cup as well?
I think he did.
And injured in the World Cup, came back, got injured in a Champions
League final,
and he hasn't played
his second Champions League final got injured. Remember the one against Chelsea and he got when Rudiger finished him.
Well, the Rudiger one was as a collision, but this one was bad because in the first half, and it's a game where he knew he was thinking, right, I'm finally here. I'm going to get to play my minutes, do what I can do in the Champions League final. Breaks down.
After how long was it? 10, 15 minutes he brought
Not that long. I'm thinking how many games he's playing because that was the same year he had the World Cup and doing all these games.
And all the trophies he won that season as well.
He's not a bit part player. He was their captain.
It was the main man, yeah.
It's crazy.
Crazy stuff, man.
Okay, it certainly needs to be done. I mean, for you, Matthew, what do you think, or what would you like to see happen now? Like, because I feel like we're at a point now where either the leagues and the federations in charge make a decision, like FIFA, UEFA, FIFPro, which is the governing body that governs all footballers around the world. Either they need to step in and say something, or the players themselves are just to say, look, we're not going to play anymore.
I mean, going back to what you said with stuff like the Nations League, it's just filler. It's extra content. It doesn't mean anything. It's not going towards anything. No one's celebrating the fact that you've done it, all right? So content's got to be cut in some sort of way because it's content. That's all it is. It doesn't mean nothing. Also, and I know this is the England-centric problem, but it's still an important problem. If you're going to do these internationals, you're playing 2 games over the week that there's no league action, at least give it to the players that you know you're going to go with in that coming tournament.
Or if you know the players you're going to pick, you don't need to call them up because you're going to pick them anyway.
Yeah.
So call up players that you're not sure whether they could be a part of your squad. So, like, you know, Harry Kane, to me anyway, Harry Kane's going to start for England until he decides to retire. That's a given. Doesn't matter, like, his form could drop off a cliff, but because of his quality, he will still get the start. So in these international weekends, why not give Ollie Watkins, not a call-up, let's start the kid. If you're going to call up Nketiah, let's start him. Wilson, let's start them. I remember years ago when Sturridge was still actively playing, and it's a shame that he's practically retired, but when he was still playing, and I remember when he started in a couple of games over Harry Kane and Rooney, you're just like, okay, this is interesting. Let's see what he can do. And he was showing you
what he could
He's
do. He
got
was good.
something.
Yeah.
You need that because the players know Harry Kane's the first choice starter. They know when Henderson gets called up again, another
choice,
7 of internationals, what more do you need to learn? You know what Henderson's going to do for you. You're not learning anything new. When we had all this debate about Trent versus Trippier versus Walker, it's like, okay, let's call up Trent this week. Let's start him right back. Let's see how he does. Goalkeeping debate. Pickford's number 1. Okay, let's try someone else from the start. Okay, I know for these ones he did give Sam Johnston some starts and everything, but let's be creative. You're always calling up Maguire. You know what Maguire can do. You got other people, like other options. You know, you called up Tomori. You had Tomori and Gray playing in the last game. Tomori played left back. Why is Tomori at left back? Guy's a centre back. Like, what are we doing here? So that's my thing. Like, if you really want to showcase the pool of talent we've got in England, because there's a lot of really talented players in England that don't get an opportunity for the national team, and you don't understand why. Players like James Ward-Prowse, he should be called up for the national team. What more does the guy need to do this season? I'm glad Bowen gets called up, but he should be getting calls up way before when he did. We know with Maddison, he got called up and then wouldn't get utilised for a while. Obviously, now he's out injured. Another player.
Ivan Toney, for example. Before he got banned.
Think of all the players that stopped playing for England, go for other nations just because they don't get a chance because they know other players will be going in and guaranteeing their spot. But that's like that. Now, right now, in the last, 5, 6, 7 years, we're blessed in pretty much every position that we have. So showcase the talent that we've got. Play them. Give them a chance. You know, missing out on. You know, I know Harry Kane's important, but you miss out on the talent. So like your Watkins, your Wilsons. You know, I know he doesn't play that much anymore, but Abraham at one point was getting it. Tony and Ketia. You know, so many. It wasn't like it was just one position. It's all over the pitch where we got these guys that can perform. So, and it needs to make it a little bit more interesting.
I mean, think back to the days like when we were probably like high school days when you had guys likes of James Beattie getting into England squads and playing for England.
Yeah.
You know, James Beattie at Southampton was a goal machine. Wasn't like super prolific, but he always had a good run of games. He had a good free kick on him. He could get goals. You think back prior to him, you had likes of Kevin Phillips. He was there in and around that whole time. Like Jermaine Defoe.
Yeah.
You think of Peter Crouch. You can always think of different strikers in those areas when they got a chance to kind of threaten the main person. Emil Heskey, who people love and hate, like Marmite.
Yeah.
He was a guy.
David Nugent.
David
Nugent.
Remember John Stead?
Yeah.
Ricky Lambert.
There you
Lambert.
go. So we can think of strikers over the years that have been getting an opportunity to play for the country and make a stake for the position. And I think that's why if you're going to have all this fixture congestion, there should be because otherwise what's going to happen is the best managers are going to figure out all I got to do is my player's injured the last game for these nationals and miss it. I'm not pointing any fingers at anyone, but I know a guy in Liverpool that's been doing that. So I know a guy from Manchester used to do it all the time before. So it works. But it shouldn't have come to that. Managers shouldn't have to be strategic about their players for you to kind of do things in a balanced way. But that being said, we've got games coming up this weekend. We talked about them in the last episode, so if you want to hear our thoughts, our predictions, our expectations, our hopes, listen to that one. This has been another fun episode, and we'll be back next time after this weekend's games, where we're going to hopefully see 3 points across the board. And Man United, we'll see what you do. That's us signing out. See you next time.
Peace.
Peace.